to accelerate our business.
The NBN is changing the way we do business. To find out how it's benefiting Australian businesses, go to australia.gov.au/NBN. Authorised by the Australian Government, Canberra.
Anna is 84. Her body has changed throughout her life. It's more fragile than it used to be. Nevertheless, she remains in good health. Why do some of us live to 84 while others don't? Will you live this long or even longer? Is the human lifespan extending indefinitely, or are we programmed to die? Tonight I will try to answer these questions by showing you this 84-year-old woman sliced in half.
Lesson 4. Time. An investigation, including live dissections of 3 human bodies, into why we die of old age.
Time passes, things change, and this is true on the inside of our bodies as well as on the outside. No matter how careful we are to avoid accidents and live a healthy life, there's nothing we can do to hold back the effects of time. But what does it really mean to say that our bodies age? In this programme, we'll be examining the changes that happen in human bodies as they get older, and we'll see if this can help us to answer the question of why we can't actually live forever, even though more of us are now living to old age than ever before. Well, let's start with a simple observation.
When a mother holds her baby, she always has to support the back of the head, because the skull's bone, which covers the brain, are much more in volume than the facial bone. They have not yet developed. Therefore, when a baby falls asleep, its head falls back. In an adult person, where the teeth develop, the bone, the facial bones, are much more. They grow in volume. Therefore, when we are in the train, he falls asleep, his head goes down. But in the old skull, an old person, it's like in the baby. The facial bone shrink, no teeth anymore, so less and less weight. As a result, when the old person in the train, when it gets tired, again the skull goes to the back like in the small baby.
So we've seen how changes in our teeth and in our jaws and in the relative weight of our facial bones in the back of our head can influence the way we have a nap, something that we tend to feel more in need of as we get older. Well, let's have a look at some other differences that are visible from the outside between youth and age.
So may I call our 2 models to come here. Thanks for coming. And we will, in more detail, explain the difference. To demonstrate how the skin becomes thin, how the elastic fibers vanish. I take the hand of Anna and I take some skin up and look how much it takes that the skin goes and stretches back. Now Jessica, give me your hand. When I do it here, you can't look as fast as the fold stretches away. Well, I'm something in the middle. When you look at the skin, it wrinkles. The face shows smooth skin, wrinkles around the eye and the head. All the elastic tissue is gone. Even the larynx drops down. It is much higher in a young woman. The same holds true for the breast. The fat tissue is reduced, but also the body shape. The vertebral disc lose water, you lose height with age.
And there are also other features one can see from the outside. With age, the hair follicles on our head tend to make less melanin pigment, making the hair go grey. And also there tends to be less hair in old age. And also we can see changes that are due to our joints and our bones and our muscle strength changing in the posture that's typical of youth and age.
Even the eye don't look as sharp anymore because the lens lose water, the eye lens, and you have to accommodate. Therefore, you need glasses, as I need, and sometimes some pigment goes into it. We know as a cataract, and so the overall picture of age can be seen in all those features together. But in view of all those differences, I think Anna's doing very well, and I don't know whether I reach 84 and when. I would like to be in that good shape. Thank you so much for coming.
The things that we've looked at so far are features that we're all familiar with seeing in old age, but they wouldn't normally be fatal. But what they do illustrate is our body's increasing vulnerability as we get older. All of our components age together, giving us less and less room for manoeuvre if something goes seriously wrong. Now, this process happens at different rates in different people. Some people are youthful at 75, while others are old at 55. But wherever we fall on this spectrum, our bodies do get weaker as we get older. We have less and less functional reserve. And diseases that young people shrug off can kill older people. For example, a bad cold. Most young people don't think twice about it. But this can be a serious disease in elderly people. And indeed, in the wintertime, our hospitals fill up with cases just like that. Okay, well, we've seen changes that are visible from the outside of the body. Let's now delve inside the body and examine the changes of aging that can be seen there. And of course, what we want to see are the changes that occur in our major organs, in the heart and the lungs, in the liver and the kidneys and the gut and so forth. But we also want to see the changes that happen within blood vessels, within our bones and our joints and our muscles. And many of these places aren't visible in a standard dissection procedure. So in order to allow you to see these and also to make a comparison between a young and an old person, we're now going to open two bodies in a most unusual way.
And we are actually prepared two bodies. I asked my assistants to come, and it is on this side where is inside this block of foam there is a 47-year-old woman. In this block of foam, an 84-year-old woman. Both we have cut at -70 centigrade in two frontal sections. And now we will open the foam case. And we turn it around. And we do the same. This side, we look into the mold and turn it around. And now I like to bring the upper half to the left so that we can see on the cut surface. And the same we do on this side with the old lady. So we take the top of the young and the old lady aside and want to concentrate now on the two cut surfaces.
This gives us a complete overview of the body, including the internal organs here, the visceral organs, which are normally accessible by dissection, but also the muscles and the bones and inside the head, which aren't normally accessible in a standard dissection.
bodies of an old and a young woman have been compared. The cadavers of an old and a young woman have been sliced in half. Now comparisons can be made on the inside.
We look first on the brain. The brain, at full size, it is adjacent to the skull, and look at the grey matter here in the brain, very thick, the cortex of the brain.
Whereas in the older person, the grey matter of the brain tends to get thinner. And you can see that particularly here in an area known as the insula, where there's much more space than there would be, or than there is in the young person's brain, and the grey matter is notably thinner.
When I look here, there's an aorta, and I hardly see the wall. The wall is very thin. But from over here, I see it's wide and thick.
Yes, and the aorta in this specimen, you can see here, the red in the centre is the blood clot, and the yellowy surround is the wall of the artery. And this shows two features typical of old age. First is an irregularity of the wall, which is due to hardening of the arteries. And secondly, the aorta in the older specimen is actually wider than the aorta in the younger specimen. And this dilatation of the large vessels is also a typical feature of aging.
Let's have a look on the vertebral column. The vertebra, and in between, about in width, 1 centimeter, the intervertebral disc just cut frontally, all of even height. Over there, quite different. John?
That's right. In the older person, we can see a similar portion of the spinal column here. And here, in the brown colour, you can see the vertebrae. And in between, the intervertebral discs, the lower two are of relatively normal thickness, but this one here is much, much thinner, and the intervertebral disc has collapsed. And this is a substrate of back problems that we all know become commoner in older age. And there's also another feature we can see in this specimen to do with the vertebral bodies themselves, the actual spinal bones. Normally the edge of a spinal bone is lightly scalloped, as you can see here. But if we look at this one, there's a much bigger indentation, and similarly with this one. And this indicates a partial crush fracture of these vertebrae, probably due to the fact that the bone is getting thinner, another feature of old age. Another feature we can see in this abdomen is the liver, which is this organ here. And this liver is actually substantially smaller than the liver in the younger person.
The metabolic power work, which has to be performed in the young person, is much bigger. Therefore, the liver is bigger.
An older person's metabolism is often 50% less than a younger person's metabolism, and probably accounts for why people tend to feel the cold more as they get older.
And also the bone is very thick here of the femur, whereas over there I even see an artificial hip replacement.
That's right. You can see that compared to the young person's bone, this bone actually does get really quite thin. And this has actually led to a fracture of the hip here, which has been replaced with this prosthesis. Well, there are a couple of other changes we can also show you in the lower limbs between the young and the old specimen.
Look at this large muscle on the outer side of the thigh. A big thigh, quite opposite to the old woman.
And on this specimen, you can see the thigh muscle running down here, much thinner and much smaller. And at least in this leg, this reduction in size of the muscle is possibly due to the fact that the leg has been slightly immobilized. But even on the other leg, the muscle is a lot thinner than it is in the younger person. And we can also see a change in the knee.
When we look here at the knee, we see this white line. This is cartilage. In between there is also cartilage called meniscus. And the cartilage is healthy,